Sega has had some extreme ups and downs over the last few decades. From the launch of its last console in 1998 to the decline and resurrection of the Sonic the Hedgehog series and the long-running success of the Yakuza franchise, Sega's timeline can be considered an example of extreme highs and lows, but it still has grit to survive over time. In this video I show you the best Sega Genesis games of all time. From Sonic to Castlevania, I show you everything in this video. In its heyday, however, Sega manufactured and distributed many gems, both well-known and underappreciated. So many, in fact, that no video could do justice to the system's legacy. But that doesn't mean that this video doesn't contain the best of the platform, so come with me. Sonic the Hedgehog was a fast-paced blast of fun, but there were some speed bumps on the road that saw the blue hedgehog take the entertainment world by storm. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, though, had none of those issues as it found its groove in the Emerald Hill Zone and beyond. Faster and better balanced in the challenge department than its predecessor, Sonic's first sequel was firing on all cylinders as it introduced Tails for some quick couch co-op multiplayer. Exploration yielded fun bonuses like going Super Saiyan when you found all Chaos Emeralds. Robotnik's boss fights were more fun than ever, and the game ran like a dream. Literally. There's no logical explanation for anything that happens in the game once Ecco's friends have been mysteriously kidnapped right out of the water. Ecco has to navigate all kinds of strange things in new, foreign waters to uncover what happened to his family and friends, as well as find who has thrown all this new technology into your waters. Not only do you have to fight against aliens and the creatures that they've mutated, but you're still only a dolphin, meaning you'll have to balance exploring the depths of the abyss with continuously coming up for air. It was a scarier game than it was meant to be when you were a child. The list of the best Genesis games cannot be complete without Lion King, another title that had great success following the eponymous Disney animated movie. You play as Simba and traverse the varying landscape, eating bugs and beating hyenas, to find your way to adulthood. Eventually, you have to face Scar and claim your place as the king of animals. The bonus levels with Timon and Pumbaa are a great addition to an already interesting game. This title was developed by the famous Westwood Studios, the developers of the Command & Conquer franchise, as well as Dune and Dune 2, which revolutionized real-time strategy games, forging a path for modern RTS titles. Combat Cars was everything that players who were sick of only using shells and bananas needed in their lives. It's one thing using a chain chomp or bullet bill to get the upper hand against your opponents, but being able to wield landmines, shotguns, glue spots, and more really ups the stakes. This is another one of the best Sega Mega Drive games for fast-paced, seat-of-your-pants multiplayer action, and you'll enjoy wiping the smiles off your cocky mates' faces as you beat them time and time again. Win money as you race, aim for a high score, and then use the money that you've earned to upgrade your chosen car for the next race. Combat Cars plays and feels just like a classic arcade game. There's no going back once the clock reaches zero. Input your name, be proud or ashamed of your score, and start all over again. People forget how hard computer games used to be before automatic save functions and invulnerability cheats. They forget what it felt like to be almost out of time, the seconds ticking ever faster as you just managed to scrape into level 21 by the skin of your teeth and avoided having to redo the previous 20 levels. A testosterone-loaded gauntlet of guns, bullets, and merciless action, Contra Hardcore is Konami's run-and-gun formula at its very best. A fresh break from the past, Contra Hardcore dialed the action up even more, amped up the difficulty, and added new selectable characters. The boss fights are ludicrously over the top, the soundtrack will make you tap a hole in your floor with its catchy beats, and your thumbs will grow abs from all the unceasing action that you'll need to endure. Battletoads was released on multiple systems, including as an arcade cabinet. It is notorious for being a difficult game, no matter the platform you play it on. However, the SNES and Genesis versions are considered more difficult than the arcade version, especially the notorious Turbo Tunnel. It is arguably one of the best Sega Genesis games, not just as a beat-em-up, but in general. The Streets of Rage trilogy was one of the finest beat-em-up series to ever land on the Genesis, but it's the middle chapter of that brawling collection that's worth revisiting. Smoothing over the rougher parts of the first game's design, Streets of Rage 2 nailed a perfect balance between style and substance as you worked your way through various gangs that were looking to punch your lights out. The combat was on point, the art design was 16-bit evergreen goodness, and the soundtrack made every haymaker that much more satisfying. Streets of Rage 3 is the continuation of the Streets of Rage series, with characters such as Blaze, Axel, Skate, and the new Dr. Zahn. As you play the game, if you meet certain requirements, you can unlock more characters. Each character has its own moves, providing you with the opportunity for unique gameplay. It is a beat-em-up classic that allows you to express your street fighting, button-mashing skills. The previous 2 titles are also worth playing, and if you get the chance, you should go through them as well. Sorry, I just had a hard case of nostalgia there. What a game though, and one of the best for kicking back with your mates on a Saturday afternoon after watching WWF on Sky 1. To this day, Mega Bomberman remains the most addictive multiplayer mode on all of my best Sega Mega Drive games. Battling against the residents of Planet Bomber in the Jammin' Jungle while riding around on the back of bomb-slinging Kangaroo. You can keep Call of Duty in the best PS5 games. I'll stick with Bomberman. Up to 4 players can dive right into the midst of the explosive action. See what I did there? And it's a genuine classic title that you need to have in your Mega Drive collection. This was the first time we saw the white-headed Bomberman as the main star of the show, the character that would later be referred to as Bomberman and go on to star in one of the best N64 games of all time, Bomberman 64. And Sega really knew what they were doing when it came to naming the levels on Mega Bomberman 2. Vexen Volcano, Crankin' Castle, they sound like swanky New York nightclubs. This game does have a single-player mode too, but I'm all about the multiplayer mode. If you don't have any friends, then I suggest you pay some actors to sit next to you and feign enjoyment. The beauty of the Shinobi series on Genesis was that it fully immersed you in the power fantasy of being a mythical assassin from a bygone age. Shinobi 3 perfected that idea, and even though you were technically a heavily armed glass cannon, nailing the agility of the mystical warrior while dropping ninja magic and shurikens on hapless foes was an experience that few games could equal. Challenging but never unfair, Shinobi Joe's latest adventure was a work of violent art on the Genesis. With their annual release schedules and minimal yearly improvements, it's rare to see any sports title come close to making a respectable list of any great console's very best games. However, all the stars aligned just right for NHL 94. It's that special kind of sports title that stands the test of time. Granted, NHL 94 is not the most feature-rich game, but the action on the ice features just the right mix of realism and arcade speed needed to make every game feel unique. Presentation-wise, the arena-specific organ music and goal horns remain iconic. There's a good argument to be made that no other hockey title's gameplay has really matched what NHL 94 delivered. EA's decision to re-release the game for modern consoles in 2020 only verified how special this game really is. It's a long-running joke that Street Fighter II had possibly too many iterations on Genesis and SNES consoles, but the best of the lot on Sega consoles was undeniably Super Street Fighter II, the purest and best optimized version of Street Fighter II. Capcom's arcade classic had everything you could ask for in a home console port. 6-button support was added, the animations were smoother than ever, and that opening intro scene of Ryu striking a fighting pose was an instant system seller. Having all of those fine extras on top of the already phenomenal and deep combat made this incarnation of Street Fighter II a heavyweight champ. Mortal Kombat blew the world with its gory first title. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 added some characters that were missing from Mortal Kombat 3. Scorpion and Kitano were omitted, which is a strange choice given their overall popularity and importance to the MK universe. The game is a fighting masterpiece, often cited as one of the best Mortal Kombat titles. It was released on all the popular consoles at the time, including an arcade cabinet version, and was a popular game on all the platforms. It was released even on the Nintendo GBA. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy line shaped the 90s. Wherever you looked, someone was trying to create the next unlikely superhero or team of superheroes. Playmates Toys wanted in on that action, and the end result was Earthworm Jim. The game is a side-scrolling platformer where players control the titular character, who, true to his name, is an earthworm named Jim. Naturally, he also has a super-powered alien super suit and a giant gun. Earthworm Jim set itself apart from similar titles with its presentation. The art style was cartoonish with a hint of comic book grunge, and every level and asset exudes an irreverent sense of humor. One of the first things you do in a game is launch a cow. Why? Only Earthworm Jim knows for sure. This science fiction title offers players an immersive experience with a deeply engaging plot. Set in a dystopian future, players control Agent Conrad B, who learns that alien shapeshifters who can take human form are planning to invade Earth. Unfortunately, he's captured, and his memory erased. Starting from scratch, Conrad's quest is one of regaining his lost memory and stopping the aliens from conquering the planet. This cinematic platformer engrosses players in the story due to a quality gameplay experience. The animation is rotoscoped, and all backdrops are hand-drawn, providing a superior gameplay aesthetic even today. There's no wonder this cinematic platformer was a critical success and a bestseller on Genesis. Sonic the Hedgehog wasn't the Sega Genesis only speedster. The console was also home to Rocket Knight Adventures, a game about a rocket-powered opossum knight on a quest to save his princess from an evil pig army. The game boasted a Saturday morning cartoon presentation thanks to its bright colors and emotive characters. While Rocket Knight Adventures wasn't as fast-paced as Sonic the Hedgehog, the game was far more nuanced thanks to its refined combat system. Players had several avenues of attack, each with their own advantages and disadvantages. As a result, Rocket Knight Adventures was a challenging title that, depending on the difficulty setting, tested gamers of all ages. Bad things happen when you let Earl drive the ship. Toad Jam and Earl came out in 1991 with a mixed bag of reviews. The visuals were unique and wonderfully bright, fitting for an alien planet, but man, was it difficult trying to figure out how to play it as a child. The lack of save points and how slow the movement is without items were the biggest contributors to the high difficulty, but once you finally mastered the game, nothing felt better. At least until you play the next one. Compared to the other titles, Altered Beast is an old title. It is still a great side-scrolling beat-em-up game. You are dead and are resurrected to rescue the mage's daughter. Of course you are. As you defeat the White Cerberus, you gain points which increase your muscle size. With 3 upgrades, you turn into a beast. This beast upgrade differs from level to level, allowing you to move faster, jump higher and deal more damage, as well as ranged damage. Each level has a boss which is easier to beat in beast form. With 2 storylines, increased difficulty, and some innovative technological achievements, Sonic and Knuckles earns its place in the top spot. The game follows both titular characters in their separate storylines. Whereas Sonic is on his usual quest to stop Dr. Robotnik's evil plan, Knuckles' campaign takes place after Sonic's and sees the Echidna go up against the Doctor's robots. Despite being developed alongside Sonic 3 as a single game, it was split into 2 due to time constraints. However, the split enabled some exciting gameplay thanks to technological achievements. The cartridge featured a lock-on ability, so when certain games were connected to this one, players received additional games. Connecting Sonic 2 or Sonic 3 to Sonic and Knuckles created Knuckles and Sonic 2, and the entire Sonic 3 and Knuckles experiences. Other games would give players variations of the Blue Sphere special stage. Once again, the colorful environments and high replay value impressed critics and players, leading to the game becoming one of the Genesis' most impressive releases. By 1994, Castlevania had firmly established itself as one of Konami's biggest franchises. For its Genesis arrival, Konami went back to the drawing board so that a Castlevania experience could be designed exclusively for that system, resulting in a game that's seen as one of the best in the series before Symphony of the Night came along and set a new status quo. Taking full advantage of the 16-bit Sega hardware, Bloodlines goes all in on the classic Vania approach, delivering an onslaught of enemies across a selection of varied stages. It's beautiful, the action requires you to be quicker than the crack of the whip, and the experimental approach to gameplay elevated it above its predecessors. A title of exceptional difficulty, Landstalker is not a game for the faint-hearted. Using an isometric layout, this action-adventure title tells of a treasure hunter's quest. He must brave all sorts of enemies and traverse a fantastical world. His search for clues eventually leads to King Noel's legendary treasure. This elf treasure hunter is the one and only Nigel. Together with the wood nymph Friday, the player must lead Nigel on his journey through many dungeons, as well as meet nearby townsfolk. Side missions let the player help these NPCs win extra gold or other benefits. Overall, the game has become somewhat underrated, perhaps due to intensely difficult segments. However, its long campaign and high challenge level make it memorable as a game worth tackling. Notably, this game, based on the same TV show, is actually 5 different games, all different because of the different consoles they were released on. With that in mind, the games had their own developers, Nova being the one that did the Genesis version of the game. This is a fighting game, where you battle 1v1 against a computer or fellow player. The scenario mode puts you against a regular-sized opponent, and then a monster version of it. In the latter scenario, you fight in the Megazord. Regular attacks and special moves are available. A tremendous sequel to a cult classic RPG, Shining Force 2 is still fondly remembered to this day by Sega's most devout fans. Tightening up every single gameplay nut and bolt that the first game had placed, Shining Force 2 confidently dips into strategically deep fantasy to deliver a tactical experience that was unique for the Genesis at the time. It's colorful and detailed, and while people might write it off as a Fire Emblem clone, Shining Force 2 still had a few tricks up its sleeve to distinguish itself from the competition. So, it's a little known fact that the barbarian dude on the Golden Axe 2 game cover was modeled on my actual body. True story. This game packs more muscle than Arnold Schwarzenegger's muesli. It's a mythical SmackDown title that Gauntlet fans are sure to feel at home with. Play as a barbarian, aka me, an Amazon, or a dwarf while beating back enemy after enemy after enemy. If you're looking for a game to de-stress while imagining hitting your boss with a spiky ball on a stick, then you just found it. The concept of Golden Axe is so simple that a baby could play it, but we don't really advise that they should. There are no subplots, no intense storylines, no puzzles, just good old-fashioned button-mashing madness and hordes of monsters to deal with. Use gnarly weapons and magical powers to crush your opponents, clearing battlefields of enemies faster than people leave a table once I tuck into an all-you-can-eat buffet. Long before Metal Slug was making a name for itself with anarchic gunplay, that signature blend of action was perfected in Gunstar Heroes. Not just a wonderfully polished romp through various levels that barely gave you time to catch your breath, Gunstar Heroes was a handsome display of blast processing power for the Genesis. It looked as good as it played, and with semi-three-dimensional levels that were years ahead of their time, that gameplay was simply sublime. Gunstar Heroes would leave an indelible mark in the memory of anyone who tried it, and it set a new bar for developer treasure. The Hyperstone heist sees the return of everyone's favorite turtles from the Turtles in Time game. As always, Shredder is up to no good, and with the Hyperstone, he could eventually conquer reality. Choose your favorite turtle and enjoy a faster game. There are fewer levels than in the previous game, but they aren't as short. Enjoy classic characters, from allies to bosses that you will recognize from the shows and other turtle games. Between Shining Force, Phantasy Star, and Sword of Vermilion, Genesis players were spoiled for choice when it came to RPGs. Monster World 4 was one of the must-play titles of the genre, but one that came with a catch. It was a Japan exclusive. Those lucky few who could get their hands on the game though were in for a treat. The mix of action, platforming, and RPG elements made it feel unique at the time, while the technical side of this game was a masterpiece of rock-solid design. What would the man in the mirror tell you to play? Probably Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, the only game for smooth criminals who are bad. Okay, that's enough MJ songs for one sentence. I know what you're thinking, MJ in a video game? What the heck is that all about? Next thing I'll be telling you that it's based on the Shinobi series too. Yeah it is, actually. In Moonwalker, MJ must groove his way through various levels, puling off magic dance moves to hypnotize enemies. Once they're in a trance, MJ beats them to a pulp. There are levels where asteroids turn Michael into a robot too. Fighting a drug dealer's minions in space sounds like the product of a bad trip to me. On paper, this game really shouldn't work, but here's the thing, it's awesome. Blasting through all of Jacko's epic music video settings and clicking your fingers to his classic back catalog while busting bad guys, what's not to love? Nintendo's Legend of Zelda may have spent the 1990s establishing itself as a definitive action-adventure series, but Sega's Beyond Oasis was a fine attempt to muscle in on that Hyrule territory. Also titled Story of Thor in other regions, the top-down perspective, gorgeous visuals, and engrossing action made Prince Ali's quest both charming and exciting. It's one of the forgotten games of its time, but this beautifully animated epic became a cult classic after it landed on store shelves. The Story of Thor is definitely one for the Zelda fans out there. I'm going to go ahead and guess that everyone who's reading this article is a Zelda fan, and if you're not, just keep it to yourself. Yeah, gamers play as Prince Ali, Hang on, I thought we just had that game. This is a different Prince Ali to the one that Robin Williams sings about, and he's trying to find a mysterious amulet that will prevent another dude who has an amulet from causing havoc. They should have called it The Story of Amulet or something. With a Hyrule-style map and lots of secret areas to uncover, this adventure classic sees players taking on huge bosses in epic locations through a top-down perspective. Collect bombs, fight with a knife, and wield elemental spirits in battle to restore peace to your world. Weapons can break, however, so make sure you're packing something strong when you go into a battle. Listen, this is basically a repackaged Zelda title for the Mega Drive, which instantly means it's going to be great. Give it a go and let us know your thoughts. Another standout RPG on the Genesis, Phantasy Star IV saw the series return to its sci-fi roots for one final hurrah. A love letter to traditional RPGs, Phantasy Star IV didn't stray too far from the established formula of the genre, but everything felt perfectly polished. Tricky dungeons were waiting to be explored, the turn-based combat packed a punch, and character progression was constantly satisfying. This was a strange title that came out of nowhere after the success of the eponymous animated movie. It was first released for Genesis and then ported to other platforms. You play as Aladdin and run through the story of the movie, with multiple levels. The sword and melee and apples as a ranged attack are the basic mechanics. You can collect gems to trade them for lives or the ability to continue from the same level if you lose all your lives. There is a bonus level if you find a golden Apu in the level. You play as Apu in the bonus levels. Some of the best puzzle games of the Genesis generation could be found sandwiched between some of Sega's most popular titles, and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine definitely counts as a prime example of this idea. Essentially the riveting action of Pew Pew given an Eggman makeover so that it could find traction in the West. It's a fine alternative for anyone who had gotten bored of Tetris and hadn't yet discovered the magic of Bust-A-Move. This Sonic-branded game merged colorful combos with multiplayer bean stacking that couldn't be topped at the time. So, did you like the games I recommended? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel to follow me and activate the bell because I post a lot of videos on this channel and you can't miss it. I would like to remind you that in the description we have a list of different products that can make your gaming experience much better. If you want to buy, the link will be in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for following me this far and until next time, bye.